Hey, Scott from MyGrowthRings.com here once again is in my garage shop. In this episode, we're going to learn how to rabbet on the Shopsmith joiner, and we're also going to try out this brand new SnapCheck Plus gauge to set the knives on the joiner and see if that is a worthwhile investment for you. So you might be asking yourself, what is that? Why do I care? You care, trust me. This is the SnapCheck Plus by a company called iGaging. And yes, it does look like iGaging to me too. And you can see that by moving this little, I don't even know what to call that, this little part right here, it changes the measurement that we're getting on the digital scale. And by pressing this button, you can see we can move from millimeters to inches and decimal. In fact, let's go back to that first inch setting. And you can see here that it's fractions of an inch for Americans. And while I'm going to use it here to set the knives on the Shopsmith joiner, I absolutely recommend to you that you check out a channel, Woodworkers Woodshop Limited. I'll link to that exact video in the video description, where he puts this through an exhaustive test. He shows how to use this to check measurements, thicknesses of boards, how to check rabbets and dados, and setting the fence on a router table or shaper. This is a super handy tool, and I recommend you check it out. I found this on Amazon for, I think, $27 and with free Prime shipping. But check around. You might find it cheaper. Keep in mind that you're going to pay shipping from a lot of places. But the lowest price that I saw was around $20 plus shipping. Highest was close to $30. Let's see how this thing works. So I just had a negative experience. I'm not going to put you through it, but the battery that was in it was not right. It was not giving me decent reading. So I don't know why, but I've replaced this with a fresh battery. One of the ones that came with it, it seems to be working better. So let's take a look at how this thing works. This has rare earth magnets in the bottom, and when you set that down on a cast iron surface and just lower the anvil onto that cast iron surface, and hit 0, that would reset that and calibrate it at 0. Again, as long as you're not rocking it, it'll calibrate it at 0. And then if we come over here to our knives and put that right on top of the knife, and you can rotate the cutter head until you get the highest measurement, highest number from that. In this case, I'm getting 0.001 on the far right-hand side, but over here on the left-hand side near the rabbeting ledge, I'm getting 0.0005. So isn't that interesting how close I was able to get using the straight edge method? Pretty accurate. Now, another interesting thing about this tool, you can also use this. Again, we've got this thing set right now at 0. I can bring this over as I am setting the height of this bed. So I'm turning the knob back here on the back, and let me bring that up. Or actually, let's go to a 1/16 of an inch right there. And if I change this to fractions of an inch, that is telling me that I am 5/64 of an inch right now. So let's go up just a hair, and now I'm at a 1/16 of an inch. Can you see that? Can you see that? It says a 1/16 of an inch right there. My gauge is set for a 1/16 of an inch. Somebody asked about this. Let me show you this gauge. So there's the gauge. It's actually pretty coarse on here, and you just loosen the screw and aim the pointer to the dimension that you are shooting for. Also, somebody had noted once before that they like to keep their jointer clean. I don't. I let this fill up with sawdust, and I never clean this out because as soon as I do, that's a spot where sawdust likes to fly out. So I just let that pack up. It never has affected the way the joiner moves up and down on this joiner anyway. You'll also see that we have a little drop down gauge here, or stop. This is designed to stop you from taking too crazy deep of a cut. So you'll run into this. It'll stop you from lowering the table any further. And you just have to flip it up to continue on. Now, I'll use that for rabbiting here in just a minute. One other thing I was curious about is, did I get that blade set laterally properly? If you saw on that video, I was using a straight edge against the outfeed table to set the blade, so I would make sure that the blade for rabbiting was cutting far enough away from this ledge that that ledge doesn't get in the way. We can check that out here if I take that stud out. So let's do that. This is the stud that on the Shopsmith feather guard allows us to lock the feather guard in place to where it will support stock against the fence. So to do this, I've really got to lower this table down. So I'm holding up the little flip stop here that was keeping me from going too deep. And this will allow me to come alongside with the anvil and measure that. So right now, if I come over here and let's just zero that out, go back to an inch measurement, and then come here right to the edge, and I am 0.021 beyond the edge of the outfeed table on that blade. I am 0.058 with that blade, and 0.057. So the knife that I installed and played with the other day is a little bit too far to the right. It needs to be brought forward. It doesn't surprise me because I'm not the one who set the other knives. And so they're actually set further away from the edge of the cutter head than I've set this one up. So I'm going to go ahead and change that, and I'll match what they have done just because that's easier than changing two other blades to match. So I moved a bunch of stuff around to get that blade loose. So I've already moved the fence, but I'm back here. I'm zeroed out again at the edge of the table. And now I'll come right alongside the blade. Oh, I just pushed the knife way out of the way. And we'll just lock that down. I tell you what, that is way closer than I would ever have gotten using my straight edge. Cool. Let's check that again. And we'll zero that out against the fence. Check the edge of the blade. Oh, that's nice. That's really sweet. All right, that's impressive. As I said, this is woodworking, and I'm used to setting this thing up by just moving a straight edge a few fractions. So I'm getting far more accurate setup than I was with that. I know a lot of machinists just kind of go crazy with their tools, and I'll tell you, do that if you like. I mean, if you have the equipment to set your equipment up as accurately as possible, go to town. The one thing to keep in mind is once you've got your tools set up, put your measuring devices away because we're working with wood, and wood just doesn't work to those same tolerances as metal. But this is kind of cool. So right now I've got the feather guard off, and this is pretty dangerous. I want to be sure that I'm staying clear of the blade. This is kind of the danger zone. I've mentioned before that on the top of my jointer I have put some red markings, and I always want to check to make sure my stock is larger than the distance between those two. Obviously it is. It's about 9 inches is the smallest we should be running. I'll check the grain on this, and it goes like that, so it kind of doesn't matter. And I'm just going to go ahead and do this. Don't you do this. Leave your guards on. But I want you to be able to see what is happening here, especially as we come to rabbiting. I have removed my ring as well as my watch. And let's give this a shot. So we're getting a very nice cut here. I would have expected a slight, ever so slight snipe on the end, but we don't seem to have that. All right, now for setting up a rabbit, what we're going to do is we are going to figure out where we want our rabbit to be on this piece. Now we would normally measure this, but let's just say I want to take off this much material right here. Maybe I'm making some shiplap stock, and so I want that gone. So I'm going to set my fence so that the only part of that board I'm hitting is, in fact, the part that I want to remove stock. So I just position that blade centered over the fence, and we'll get that kind of eyeballed in, and we'll make a pass. As you can see, I've got it set to take a 1/16 of an inch off. Light's not behaving very well. 1/16 of an inch. One of the things I would do is eyeball down that to make sure that it's truly straight. If it's not straight, if the rabbit gets narrower as we go, that's an indication that the blades are set too far away from this ledge, and that's causing the ledge to pull the stock away from the blade. Now here's the deal. If I run this board through again, nothing's going to happen. If I run it through again, nothing's going to happen, because this part that I've already machined is resting at this height. Until that goes down, my rabbit won't get any deeper. So now I'm going to adjust this bed down. So if I had 20 boards that I was going to produce a rabbit on, I would make the first pass on all of them and then continue on. So our rabbit is now 1/8 of an inch deep. Okay. I would rabbit all 20 of my boards. Now let's come down another 1/16 of an inch. Do it again. Still not quite down to my imaginary mark, but you can see we've got a great looking rabbit going here. So I'm thinking probably one more 1/16 of an inch is all that's left to do. And if we're leaving our mark, we're right at it. I'm gonna take a little bit more off just because we can, but not a single one of those cuts was more than a 1/16 of an inch deep. We're getting a gorgeous rabbit. So we'll go one more 1/16 here. And now all we've left is just a little hint of our measurement. Okay, great looking rabbit. So you might be asking, Scott, is that the best way to make a rabbit if you have Shopsmith equipment? Okay, yeah, to make a rabbit. If I just had one rabbit to produce, without a question, I go to my joiner. It's just straightforward, simple. I don't have to change anything except for lowering the table. If I had a bunch of rabbits to make, I'm not doing it on the joiner. You've got your table saw with a saw blade. You got your table saw with a dado blade. If you have a molder head, there's a molder head cutter that can be used for making rabbits. You can do this with a router bit, a shaper cutter, lots of ways to make rabbits. But for one or just a few, the joiner's fantastic. Now, one quick tip, don't ever remove your guard. I've done this for you to make it easier for you to see me changing knives and things, but literally, I'm not joking. Leave the guards on, especially if you happen to have the feather guard. It's there to help you, and it does a great job of it. I want to thank the 40 channel members. Thank you guys and gals for making this possible. The midweek follow-up, Stumped Q&A, will answer your questions, comment, cheap shots, and we'll also get into building an accessory fence to make that fence a little bit taller, which will make it easier to handle stock through the jointer. Look forward to seeing you then. So make it a great week.